My fitness was horrible. That's how I got into it. I still have a challenge today is when I travel is my diet. That is the hardest thing for me.
Is there a really big difference between each level of the game in terms of travel, logistics, and how things are handled?
Yeah, they're huge. It's all mental. It's a game that you fail 70% of the time.
Welcome to this edition of the Balanced CEO podcast. I'm really excited today. We brought in someone that I look up to, my friend Tony. Tony, you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an MLB, Major League Baseball certified agent. Been doing that for about close to 20 years now. So we just represent strictly professional baseball players.
That's amazing. So did you always start niche down that much, or was it the general business owner mindset of, I'm going to make myself available to everyone, and then over time you kind of found your path?
I did. I kind of started out thinking that I didn't want to go to law school, first of all. So this actually backtracked. I was actually a headhunter for one of the large corporations out here. And one of the guys in our team there said, hey, why don't you try being a sports agent? It's kind of the same thing. First thing came to my mind was, I don't want to go to law school, don't want to be a lawyer. And started looking into it and found someone who'd mentored me. And, he did football, and he had a firm that did football and basketball. So I tried it out. I went to my first NFL combine, which was out in Indianapolis, which was fantastic, but found out that football was just not my stick, right? And then tried basketball. Wasn't for me either. I didn't know what it was, but I just didn't get that enthusiasm to work with in that field. And so went to baseball. And then finally back then it was 50 rounds in the draft.
Oh, I remember those drafts were...
Right? It took like 3-4 days to do drafts. And I was thinking, if I could find the diamonds in the rough, I could possibly get someone into the big leagues. And so I kind of started working with the baseball players and really found that they were very, very receptive, very thankful for what they had, especially the later round guys. So it really worked out for me. And then it just kind of parlayed from there and just went strictly baseball. Just because the baseball season runs from April to October doesn't mean the business side does. So we go year round.
That's amazing. So you kind of just got a little nudge in the right direction, did some research on your own, found it to be a fit.
That's pretty much how it rolled out. And, ever since then, I once in a while, I'll get someone who will say, hey, can you help me with this? Or one was auto racing. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll try it. And I went, no, it's not. It just doesn't have that enthusiasm for me that baseball does.
So what about baseball gives you that enthusiasm? Is it the attitudes of the players? Is it the game itself? Is it the opportunities? I know in baseball, there's a significant more amount of opportunities for professionals than a lot of other sports in terms of leagues and levels and international.
Right. It really comes down to the player for me. The players that we represent are of good moral character, hard workers. Not to say a lot of them aren't. They are. But for me, that's really what enticed me, because for them to work hard, I'm working hard for them, and I just want them to work hard for us as well. Makes it easier for me all the way around.
Right on.
But it is the opportunities that are there. Like you said, there's more rounds, more avenues, a lot of different positions. Football and basketball, with the first 3 rounds, what your role is in that organization. And so it's pretty much laid out. Baseball, sure, maybe the first couple of rounds, it's laid out. But you have a lot of first, second, third, even up to 5th round players that never make it to the show. Then you have a lot of guys that are in that 15, 20 rounds, catch the right break at the right time. They're in the show.
Yeah, I mean, you look back at like all the different guys like Stephen Vogt, who, I mean, he spent, I don't even remember how many years in the minors, gets his first opportunity with the A, smacks a home run on his first at bat.
Yeah.
And then carves out like, I think an 8-year Major League Baseball career at like 40.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes it's just, are you willing to stick it out longer than the next guy?
Right. That's, you know, and it's just, I always tell the guys, it's finding the right break at the right time. Always be ready.
Yep.
And if you're there, you're there. You know, it all works out.
So I know people would always love to ask stuff like this. Is there a really big difference in terms of, and I know the answer, but for other people, is there a really big difference between each level of the game in terms of travel and logistics and how things are handled?
Yeah, they're huge. I think coming from college to, or even high school, you get the high school college player coming up to the pro level. The biggest difference is what I'm hearing from my guys is the bats. Going from a B core, now all of a sudden playing with the wood bat. You know, I tell my players, hey, you know, the team provides you your bats for the first couple of seasons. Play with them. You know, use a Louisville one make and model is going to feel a lot different than a Marucci of that same make and model. They just feel different. You know, the players have to learn, you know, do they want a flare knob, a thinner handle? Do they want them cupped, uncupped? So from that perspective, that's a huge adjustment for them, especially if they're a power hitter. They'll notice that the ball might not fly as far using a wood bat than it did with a B core.
Yeah, obviously it's completely different.
And the pitching at the lower levels, it's all over the place. You know, they're getting used to the different ball as well. You know, back probably about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the balls, the seams got tighter as you got up in rank. So from A ball to triple A, by the time you got to triple A, the guys were saying, man, it's like throwing a cue ball. The seams are not there. So it's harder to grip. It's harder to break, you know, do breaking balls and things like that. But from a pitcher standpoint, it got easier too, because the strike zone became a lot smaller. So there is that adjustment.
To me, it's always been incredible, right? Because like you look at, and this is the stuff I don't think people really factor in when you're playing like the big leagues. Every aspect is like inspected to a micro level to make sure it's at the utmost benefit for not only the players, but the game, the way it's watched. Mm-hmm. The Yankees and the torpedo bats are an example of that recently of, you know, yeah, it's great for the team, but it's also great for the game. It makes the game more enjoyable to watch when guys are blasting homers a little more often. Right. Maybe a little too often, but you know.
Right. But you know, some of these pitchers will send me scouting reports or their game report. And I look at this thing and it's just like, there's dots all over the place. There's graphs. And I'm like, just give me the line, you know, how many walks, strikes, but it gets that technical. And even from a pregame standpoint, before every game, they have, you know, the pitching staff has meetings with their pitchers and goes through every batter in the lineup. What are their tendencies? What are they, you know, where's their hot zones, their cold zones? And, you know, I've represented a few catchers in the big leagues who sit there and go, I have to know this player inside and out. And, you know, they're not going to be able to get a scouting report in the middle of a game. So they have to kind of really study it and get familiar with it and be ready for it.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's so much more mental as the game goes on.
Oh, it's all mental.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a game that you fail 70% of the time. And
that's fair. Yeah.
Right.
The best hitters to ever play were 65%, 70% failure rate.
Right.
It's wild.
So it is a mental grind.
That's a really interesting perspective. Let's pivot just a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the fitness thing, because like you do some pretty up there challenges for yourself.
Yeah, I did.
A lot of triathlons, and then you went all the way Ironman.
I did. I didn't listen to my friends. They said, "Hey, do the smaller ones first." See, I just said, you know what, go big or go home. First one I ever did.
Wow.
Was the full Ironman, full distance.
And that was in Sacramento, right?
That was in Sacramento last year. Yeah. So it was, 140.6 miles in one day.
You know, I can only imagine how that feels. But in terms of training, I mean, you're basically with your job, you have players all over the world. Like it's not, oh, I have my clients here in this local area and that's it. How do you manage the travel and the demands of maybe teams are calling, looking at contract extensions or questions and all this? And then at the same time, I can only imagine the amount of mileage you have to get in training. How do you,
One is you got to have a family that understands this and supports it. First of all, I mean, my wife is totally understandable. She knows that. Well, even with the baseball side of it, she jokes and says, "Okay, we don't have a vacation from January until October." So usually vacation time is in November, and then she knows that on weekends and whatnot, I'm scouting games and so forth, and training as well. It's really for me being disciplined and planning out my training schedule, knowing what I'm doing when and what time of the day, and really sticking to it as much as possible. Yeah, there's those days I go, oh man, let me just push this run off to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. But in the back of my mind, I go, it's not going to get done. You know, I tell my players the same thing: get the work done first, and then go play after. Right? Get your weight training in, then go hang out with your friends and movies and whatever. But for me, it was really just being disciplined and knowing what to do, when to do it, and getting that training done and having it outlined out.
I love that, man, because I think a lot of people, like, especially people like us that run their own business, our biggest excuse is, oh, well, this other thing is more important, right? This small fire or this drama with a staff member or whatever it is, like, oh, that's more important. My fitness can wait. But in my experience, I found your fitness is kind of the base that everything stands on. So if that isn't a strong foundation,
Right.
the rest is going to fall to shit.
Yeah. My fitness was horrible. Horrible. That's how I got into it. Going to baseball games, scouting, traveling. I think for me, and I still have a challenge today, is when I travel is my diet. That is the hardest thing for me. But before this, you go to baseball games, you eat hot dogs, you're eating hamburgers, you're going to a client meeting, you're eating at 8, 10, 11 o'clock at night. It got to the point when I worked in the city, just getting off BART and taking up a flight of stairs. I remember at one point I stopped halfway because I was winded. And then I noticed my knees started to ache more. So I finally went to a doctor and they looked and go, yeah, that's why, because you're holding all this weight. For every 1 pound you're gaining, you're putting 100 pounds of stress on your knees. You're going to have to start losing some weight. My blood pressure was through the roof. I had sleep apnea, you name it, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And so I decided, I remember watching Ironman as a kid on Wild World Sports going, oh man, that'd be kind of cool. So I started looking it up. And I'm kind of a person that has to have a goal to do something. And so I said, well, let me try this out. And so I started looking into it and I'm one of those people that if you're going to do it, you just got to go all in. There's no dabbling the toe in the water thing. You just go all in. And I found a coach, started watching some videos, and then just started gradually doing. I remember first time on a treadmill, man. I think I did 1 lap on a treadmill and I was gassed. And now I look back and go, okay, I can do a full marathon now. Or, riding a bike, 5 miles, and I was sitting there going, this isn't fun. But now 10 hours 8 hours on a bike. So that's how I got my fitness. I would sleep 4 hours. That was it. And I thought it was a cool thing. I'd sit there and tell all my players, hey, don't worry about it, man. I don't sleep much. I go to bed at 11 o'clock. I'm up at 3 or 4 in the morning. So if you ever need me, call me. And I've had a player one time call me at like 5 in the morning. And he picked up, I picked up the phone and I heard him in the background. He's on the East Coast. And I heard him go, oh, don't worry about it. He'll be up. He was talking to Lane, and I pick up the phone and I said, what's up? And he goes, hey, can you order this kid a pair of cleats for me. I said, yeah, sure, man. Just text me the address. I'll get it sent out. And I heard him as he was hanging up going, see, I told you he'd be up. That was my lifestyle. That was totally unhealthy.
I mean, the sleep alone, I really pushed myself. When I started losing weight, I think I was getting up at 4, right? So I get all the cardio done before my son woke up, and then I could be a dad and then get everything else done. And I think I was sleeping like five to 6 hours a night. And yeah, it's just, I realized real quick that shit ain't gonna fly.
No.
You know, it's like, it's not. Yeah, you can lose weight. Yes, you can get stuff done. And yes, for a season, it might be necessary to sleep 4 or 5 hours a night, even 6, right? Like that to me is like 6 is my low zone now of like, if I got to, I will. If I have to get up early in the morning to get something done or get to the airport, like Gabby and I, when we're traveling, if we got to get up and we got a 5 a.m. flight, yeah, there's no way I'm getting more than 4 or 5 hours of sleep.
Right.
Just, it happens.
It happens.
But on a regular basis, you're just asking for trouble. Your body just, I don't care if you're one of the 1% of people that can sleep 4 hours a night and function. It's like,
no, I
internally something shit is falling apart.
Right. And I set alarms to, especially in the evening. I know that I'm shutting down my desk work at a certain time. I do some journaling in the evening as well. And then I try to get off my cell phone at least an hour before I go to bed. And, I'll read a book for maybe a half hour. And then I'll watch some mindless TV just to kind of wind myself down. Yeah. But I'm in bed by 9:30 every night and I'm up at 5. And it's clockwork. And when I go on business trips, the routine sticks. And I'll, like I went to Japan for a week to visit a client. And that was a month before an Ironman. And I go, okay, I still have to get my workout in. The only thing I don't have is my bike with me. So I used the Peloton in the gym. I still went on my runs in early morning. And I kept my routine. And what I found was I never got jet lagged, which is shocking. I stayed awake the whole flight there. Got there at around 4 or 5 in the evening, hung out with my client, went to bed at my normal time, 9:30. Up at 5, boom, just kicked it out, got it all done, and just stayed like that. So it's about being disciplined. And you're right, though, too. There's sometimes that things happen, right? Yeah. You have to travel, and you're not going to get the 6 hours of sleep. And but
so what would you tell someone that was maybe in the position you were, struggling with health issues, running a business, everything seems like a priority, but you have fitness goals, like that? Is there anything you would tell them to do right up front, especially considering like you kind of you went from 0 to 100, right? A lot of people, their goals were probably a 30, but still the idea of like, it's a daunting task to go from couch to even a 5K, let alone anything longer.
Set small goals. That's it. It's, I always tell you got to walk or crawl before you walk. So set the smaller goals and accomplish the smaller goals. And then you'll feel so much better than, sitting there going, hey, I got to do a half marathon in 3 months. You're not going to, and you don't make that goal. And then what happens? You're crushed. Yeah. And then you go, okay. And then you give up. Set a smaller goal. Should I have done that? Yeah, I should have, but I was the kind of person that went, the guy I trained with, he goes, man, you have to do a sprint. You have to do an Olympic. Then do a half. I went, I'm just going to do the full. If I can't do the full, then I'll step down and do a half. And it worked for me, but I wouldn't advise it. I would say, set the smaller goals and accomplish small goals. You'll feel so much better. You'll feel more accomplished as you progress.
I love that, man. So I know you work with a lot of kids of all varying ages, and we talked a little bit off camera about the difference between the West Coast and East Coast in terms of build and size, and And you said the number one thing you noticed was the difference was in off season.
Right.
Would you recommend that to adults too? Like if they're training for stuff, to have an off season where it's like, give your brain a break, just focus on fitness, right?
Yeah.
Rather than a physical goal.
Yeah, because you have to you have to recover, right? So for a baseball player, that's what their off season is. The season that ends in October. I tell my players, don't pick up a ball until maybe mid-November or end of November, and then gradually get back into it. Let your body recover. Let your mind recover. The mind goes first, and then the body goes. So let it all recover, and have that off season and enjoy whatever. Eat the foods that you didn't get to eat while you were.
Right. That's a big one. Yeah.
I know when I did my Ironman, I had, and it was really weird. I had what they call the Ironman fog. For the first 2 weeks, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm sore. I'm trying to recover. I'm not really working out as hard, maybe easy walks and maybe light swims, easy bike rides. But all of a sudden, 1 month turns into 2 months, turned into 3 months. And I'm sitting here going, I don't know what's going on. I feel like I just have no motivation.
Yeah.
And I didn't really take where I just said, you know what, I'm just going to let my body recover, let my mind recover, and just let it sit for 3 weeks. And then gradually, race ended on Sunday. Monday, I was back to, 50-minute walk. Oh, Tuesday in the pool, light swim. Wednesday, light bike ride. For a light bike ride for me is 20 miles. I wasn't letting my mind recover.
Yeah.
My body was okay, but the mind wasn't. And so it took me a while to get back into it again. But yeah, you need to recover and you need to set those boundaries.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that it's okay to hit those, like, I don't want to call it a burnout phase, but if you get to that point where you're feeling like that, it's okay to acknowledge it and say, time to tune it down and just kind of go into maintenance, right? Just maintain enough of your physical capabilities that when you come back to the table, ready to go after your next goal, you're not starting from square one. But it's okay to kind of like relax, take some of the stress, some of the boundaries out so that you can experience life and kind of relieve some of that stress of when you go to a friend's house or a party or the movie theater. You don't have to be like, nope, can't. I have to hammer down, right? No, grab the popcorn, grab some Sour Patch Kids, get a soda, like live a little.
Yeah. And so this, good examples for this year, I've already planned out my vacation. I told my wife, hey, Ironman is on October 19th. The 21st, I says, I could give me a week to recover. Following Saturday, we're leaving on vacation. So that's forcing me to pull back and just say, you know what, we're just going to go somewhere, sit on a beach, relax, read a book, no workouts, just enjoy ourselves. Then when I come back, I'll gradually get back into it again. But just to get myself to decompress. So it's important.
Yeah, it really is. And I did the same thing. We're traveling like crazy for work all the way up until October. And then mid-October onwards, the only travel I have booked is all family and vacation for the rest of the year. Yeah. And it's like, that's the unwind because January, it's going to pick right back up again.
It does.
So I think that's great, man. I really appreciate it. Do you have anything else you want people to know about you or what you do or ways to contact you if they're interested in learning more?
Yeah, I have my own Instagram, which is, what is it? I think it's the Tony Ciccolella. Ascend Sports Group is the firm's name, so they can definitely check out the site there. ASGBaseball.com is the website, so they can look a little bit about what our firm does, how we represent our players, and what we're all about, kind of our mantra, so to speak, about how we approach the business of representing the players.
Awesome. So any parents that are watching this that have kids in high school that are aspiring to be professional athletes, any words of wisdom or things you'd want them to know?
Make sure junior has some good grades. The colleges look at student athletes with a 3.5 or higher. That's where they tend to focus their talent search. Wow. Have the kids play multiple sports. I know that here on the West Coast, we have great weather year round, so it allows the kids to play year round. But as we alluded to earlier, the East Coast kids are a lot bigger, stronger, faster, and we attribute that to their off season. They're not playing baseball from like November through February or March. So that gives them time to live in the weight room, build up strength, build up power. That's one of the things that a lot of the college coaches and scouts here say that our kids lack is strength and power. Even the kids that I work with, first thing I always ask a scout is, what does this player need to work on? And 95% of the time it's, hey, they need strength and power. They need strength and power.
So would you recommend, even for kids, maybe they're out there cranking homers, but they probably still need the weight room, obviously, just maybe just for the rigors of a college season versus a high school season is night and day. So like getting in the weight room just to make yourself physically capable of handling the rigors of a season.
Right. Yeah. It's high school baseball. You're playing 2 games a week, probably practicing a couple hours a week or a couple hours a day during the week. You go to college, now you're practicing 7 days a week. They're usually the college programs, you wake up at 6, hit the weight room, have breakfast at 8, in class by 9, all the way until 1 o'clock, maybe 2. Then you're on the field from 2 to 6, 2 to 7. And then now let's sprinkle in a Friday, Saturday, Sunday game, and then a Tuesday midweek game, and you're traveling here and there, cross country for games. It's a grind. And it even gets worse at the next level, at the professional level. So yeah, I tell the kids, develop it now, develop that attitude, develop that program, develop the discipline.
So crucial.
To be in the weight room and not just be in the weight room, but be purposeful in the weight room. What is it that you're looking to accomplish today? Focus in on that. Are we working on, for a catcher, is it, the leg strength, or even pitchers, leg strength? A lot of pitchers in high school don't know how to use anything from the waist down. They're all upper body throwers. That's why I think too, we're seeing a lot of injuries with, high school pitchers or even college pitchers working on that lower body strength. So I think just really focusing and being disciplined on that, getting into facilities like yours to get that professional instruction as well, to focus in on baseball specific.
That's crucial. And I appreciate the shout out.
You're welcome.
And, so let's just summarize this real quick for the kids. Get in the weight room, take a real off season, build your bodies. Even if you're out there hitting 50 home runs in a high school season, your body still needs to be built for the rigors of the next level or the level after that. And the East Coast kids have an advantage on you. And that's not something you don't ever want to be behind by your own doing. For the adults, if you're getting off the couch like Tony, you want to do something crazy like him, smaller goals, but you can still do it. He's obvious proof of that. I'm obvious proof of that. And for everyone, regardless of who you are, keep digging it.